G'day folks, welcome to this week's episode of Learn to Paint TV. Rod Moore here with you again, and we're going to do a fun little seascape painting project this week. A nice little sort of aerial view looking back across a beach. Now I took this photo when I was out having a walk along Coolum beach, a beautiful part of the Sunshine Coast here where I live. Let me show you the photo. So that's the little beach down in the background there, and this is like a little headland that I was walking up along, and as I said, it's a great little scene for us to paint. It's a pretty simple one for beginners, so let's see how we go. Step one of the Moore method of painting is our drawing. So I'll take my small brush here, okay, a little bit of water, we'll get some of our blue and our red. I always like to mix those together to get a colour, dark tone for us to draw with. Okay, and plenty of water into that just to thin that paint right down. As this is a drawing, we do not want thick paint, we want thin paint at this stage, okay? So we know that headland, the foreground area that we're standing on, comes to around about that point over here, okay? Somewhere there. And it goes to around about there, almost 2/3 of the way up. So if I just roughly just draw that in as a line there, okay? All this is going to be bushes in here. We've got this rock outcrop there, okay? In fact, that's probably a little bit steep, so I'll bring it down a little bit, and then we've got our bushes that are going to sit up on top of that line. Okay, that's probably a little bit better there. Another bush there. So that's our first big shape. Pretty simple, and I'll come in and we'll refine these shapes a little bit more in our second step, but for now, that's our foreground area there. And then our background area, it runs from here, and it runs kind of uphill. It looks to be uphill ever so slightly, okay? And it runs out into a point in the distance. And then we've got the sand, that sand sweeping around there, okay? And there's a little bit of a hill around about there. And pretty simple stuff, right? And by virtue of having put that in, we can then just draw our horizon line in through there, and that gives us our sky and our water, okay? And we put in some waves in through there and coming back in through there like so. And really that's all we need to worry about at this stage is just getting in those few big shapes, right? So as I said, we've got this one big shape here. Now within that there's details and so on, and we'll pick up on those as we go. Then we've got this second shape in here, which is that distant beach and the land mass over there. Sky virtually paints itself, right? And then the water, okay? And the water's a fairly big area, so the key here is going to be getting a little bit of interest in the transition and so on of the water. So we're a little bit in that. And then there's all the details are going to obviously be in these bushes with our darks and so on. So that's step one, pretty simple. Let's get underway with step two. Okay, now that we have step one done, we're going to move into step two. Now what I want to do is get in our darks into our foreground initially. So I'll take some more blue, a little less water in this mix now. So just be mindful of that. I'll add in some alizarin crimson, and that's going to give us a nice dark, okay? Perhaps just a touch of the yellow ochre, just to push it even darker. Okay, and then we've got a nice sort of dark there. Now what I want to do is just find where we've got these bushes here. We'll paint the shadow side of those bushes as our first sort of step here, okay? And also we've got some shadow in these rocks as well. So I'll just roughly put those in for the moment. And what else have we got? We've got a bit of a lively tree here. I have no idea what trees these are. They're sort of coastal trees, but I'll just scrub in some dark shapes in for them. Okay, so what I'll do is just get a little bit more of the alizarin crimson and a touch of our yellow ochre, and pick up a little bit of that dark in there. Okay, and I'm going to put this on as a stain. There won't be as thick paint as what I've just done those shadows with there, okay? Because we want to put some nice grasses over the top of that. So let's just pop that in. And this is going to be our warmest area of the whole painting. Overall, it's a painting of two halves. It's this foreground hill, which is all warm grasses and greens, and the rock. And then everything else is quite cool. This distant headland here, okay? It's a darkish tone. So we'll start with our blue, and we'll add in a little bit of yellow ochre because it's slightly on the green side, and we'll add in a touch of the red, and that'll grey that back. Okay, I want to keep it on the blue side though, so a touch more of the blue. Okay, and you know, colour mixing is obviously an important part of learning to paint. If you're unsure about colour mixing, then I recommend our colour mixing course. You'll learn a lot from that. Now, I just added a touch of the white in there. And is that going to be dark enough? That's the question. I might go a little touch more yellow, which of course lightens the value. So then I'll add a bit more blue back into that. Yeah, white obviously reduces the value, but also yellow, unless it's a dark, cadmium yellow dark, but a lemon yellow or a cadmium yellow light has the potential to reduce the value. Okay, so let's just test that. This needs to be a grey blue off in the horizon. It probably needs to be a touch cooler, so I'll put more blue in there and a little bit more white. So that's the other thing that white does, is it will cool the colour down. Okay, so I'll just add that in. Now there's a few little details that you could put in the background here if you want to. I want to keep this as simple as possible so that if somebody is joining us for the first time, never painted before, that they could look at this and go, oh, I could do that. That's what we're all about, is helping beginners to get started and then helping intermediate artists to advance. And that's what we love doing here at the Learn to Paint Academy. Okay. Now notice I've thinned that out as it gets further away from us. And in fact, what I could do is just a little bit more white into the mix, a little bit more blue, just as it gets further away. And it's going to be mostly white, okay? And a little touch of blue, hardly any though. And I'll just pick up a little touch of the yellow, just so that it's not all blue. Maybe a pinhead. See that little pinhead on the brush there of red, to give it a little bit of atmosphere, because it's not going to be a dark blue. It's right on the horizon, and what you find on the horizon is rising heat. Okay, so it's usually going to have a little bit of warmth in it. Okay, so I'll come down to here, just straight across, one big swoosh like that. That's why I use big flat brushes. Okay, so you don't need masking tape for your horizon. In fact, please don't do that. I'd rather see you have a wonky horizon and at least you've had a go at learning brush skills than putting masking tape. Because what happens when you put masking tape for your horizon is that you get a hard edge, and you know, this is way off in the distance. You're not going to see a hard edge way off in the distance. So the water, if I just bring up the photo for a moment, that water has a transition. It's a deep blue out in the distance on the horizon, and then as it comes closer to us, it goes green, right? And then a yellowy green. So we're going to just push that color around. We don't want a big block of color that's all the same. So we need to just work with it to get it, you know, so it's got a nice transition, has some interest in it as well. So start with our ultramarine blue and white. Just use the white just to pull it back a little. Okay, touch of water in there, and that looks fairly punchy. I'll just get a little touch of yellow ochre into it. Not too much. I don't want it to go green on the horizon. Okay, so something like that. So let's just have a look. Come back to our horizon line here and just run it up underneath the sky there. So there should definitely be a contrast between the sky and this deeper water in the distance. Okay. Now I don't want that to be a hard edge there, so I will blur that edge a little. I won't do it just yet. I'll just give that sky just a little bit of time just to settle down. Okay. Let's just pull that in like that. And now I want to just add tiniest little bit of yellow ochre. I'm going to add it on the side and just introduce it gradually. Okay. A little touch more water. That's probably too green. I'll just get a little bit more blue in there. There we go. Okay, so let's start to work that in. Okay, now as I come down to where the water's breaking in here, I am going to just switch it up with, I'm going to push it now more to that yellow ochre side. See that? And we just need to take our time a little bit more as we come around these trees. So I'll scrub it in if I need to. I don't mind blurring those trees back a little because I'm going to put highlights on it anyway. Okay, add a touch more white into that, a touch more of the yellows. Right, folks, well, that pretty much brings us to the end of step 2, our blocking. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it. The one thing I'm probably maybe need to adjust slightly is going to be just getting a little bit more blue into the sky there. But that's no problem. We'll do that in step 3. Okay. So, you know, if you want, you can let this just pause for a moment, half an hour to an hour, just let it dry back a bit, especially with water mixable oils. It'll just dry off the water and then it'll be good to work back into. If you're using acrylics, at this point, I recommend that you do definitely wait half an hour to an hour and allow the acrylic paint to dry hard, because as it gets tacky, it's going to be difficult to work back into. So I'm going to pause it there and then we'll pick it up again in half an hour and we'll be good to go for step 3. I'll see you then. Okay, welcome back, folks. Let this dry for half an hour or so. It's still wet, being water mixable oils, but it's just dried off enough for us to be able to work back into it without too many problems. So we'll get back into it. So I'll really concentrate on getting the details right in this foreground, then a little bit of work in the water, a couple of little details in the background, but not much. I want to keep this a really simple painting. So let us get underway. So the first thing we're going to do is I want to get that brightest green in as a foreground bush there. So I'll take our ultramarine blue here, pop that there, and we'll get straight into our cadmium yellow there. Okay. Just mix it into a lighter, warmer green. Okay. And that's this one here. And so what we want to do is we don't want to lose the shadows in there. So one of the mistakes I see a lot of our students make is that they will put their nice darks in and then they'll completely paint over it when they do their midtones or their highlights. And you want to try and avoid that as much as you can. Those shadows in there help to create the effect of it being three-dimensional. Okay, sort of shape up my little bush there like that. Use that just for something slightly different. There's sort of coastal bushes here. They're not really this bright in the photo. They're actually darker, but they look a little bit sort of dry and you know, they're not a bright green. So I thought, let's just pop in a slightly different variation of color in there. And then I'll pull some of it back in here into a darker green. It's a little bit in shadow over here, so I don't want this one to be too vibrant. Okay. So I'll just pull that down into the darks. What I'll do now, you could do this with a brush, but I'm going to just take in a larger palette knife here now. And we'll get into that yellow, a little bit of that reddy tone. Okay. And I'll just get slightly darker. See, I've got a few different little mixes in there. Let's get some of that slightly darker mix. And we'll just run that into a few spots here. And I'm going to use the palette knife because I want to get some nice textured effect in here. The palette knife's good for that. Now, if you don't feel comfortable using the palette knife, look out for our course on palette knife work, where I show you all the different things you need to know. But you could just as easily do this with a brush. I do tend to like having some nice thick textural paint in the foreground though. I think that really picks up the foreground and pulls our attention to it. Don't always want the attention on the foreground, of course, however. In this particular painting, it's pretty much what the subject is. That sort of strong foreground with a sneaky view into the distance is what this subject is, right? So now you can see that stain that we put on earlier is coming through and it's showing up there. And that's a good thing. That's why we put that stain down, especially when we're going to put these green grasses in. That stain of the earthy tone will complement the greens of the grass. Okay, and it just helps to give you that little bit of variety that you need. And I'm just looking to create some interesting shifts in tone and so on in the grasses there. So those rocks were a combination of the alizarin crimson and the yellow ochre. Okay, they're slightly more yellow, and then we need some white in there to lighten that right off. So they're an orangey tone, but just got to get the right value of it, something like that. And right in through there, a little touch of it there. Work back over that little bit of shadow that's on it. Okay, so it's just that little outcrop of rock, a little touch of it there. And then within that then, of course, there's a few little shadow cracks in the rock, and it's not all just in the highlights there. Just work a bit of that shadow tone back into it. So you can see how quickly this painting is starting to come together now. As I said, obviously in the Learn to Paint TV show here, we try and keep it quite simple, and we don't overly detail our work because we want to make sure that anyone who's just starting out painting can follow along with what we've done, and keep it fairly simple. But however, if you want to detail up the work a little bit more than what we do here, then I'd highly recommend that, especially if you've been following us for a while and you've got the hang of the basics there. Then by all means, put more detail in. Now I'm going to take a big chunk of our white here. I've got this sky blue, so I'll just mix it to the side there. I don't want it to be pure white. I'm going to do the foamy water, okay? So a little bit of blue in there I think is not a bad idea. If I really want to push highlights, then I'd add a little bit of yellow ochre in there for a bit of warmth. However, I don't know that we need that here. So see, I've got a little bead of paint there. You've got to be careful here because we've got a lot of paint on the palette knife. But basically we've got this water that's breaking in through here. And leaving a bit of a trail of water behind it. Okay. Pop that in. And then there's a fair bit of broken up water in and around here. I don't know that I want to get all of that in like that, so I'll just put in a little bit of selective foamy water like so. Okay. Otherwise I think it'll become too much. And then in the distance here there's obviously water breaking along the beach, and so breaking in through there. We're going to have water up along the edge there. Okay, now we can soften that out with a brush if we need to. Let's take my smaller brush. Okay, so a lot of this water will leave a trail out the back. So what I'll do is just blur it in a little bit. So just do this really gently and take your time with it. Just creating that back water in that. And I need to soften it in to here a bit more. Okay, now I do feel we need to just put a little bit more work into the water. So just going to pop in some little bits of green, yellow combinations. But I guess the key here is just to have little sections that have different color shifts and so on. So I've just got my little script liner brush, get a little touch of paint. I'm just going to make little tiny little dots like there's people on the beach in the water there. There's not going to be any details at all, right? It's just little dots and dashes. Well, it's always important to stand back and have a look at your painting. So I'll just get some slightly lighter grass just to knock that effect back a little bit. Maybe introduce some of that over there. Well, there we go, folks. I think we'll leave that one there. It's Coolum Beach. We've got this strong foreground here, nice warm bright colours, and then our cooler distance looking down into the beach of Coolum there. Got a few little people enjoying the surf and the sunshine. So this has come up with a good little painting. Good one to have a go at as a beginner, and one that's pretty simple. You know, you've seen a very simple 3-step process using basically 3 colors, a little bit of a booster color, and a couple of brushes and a palette knife. So anyone can do this painting. And you know, keep in mind, it's just designed to be a demonstration where you learn new skills and a new approach on how you go about painting. Have a go at doing it the way I've done it, but also play around with, you know, putting more detail into it and really working it up into a finished painting as well. And I think you'll be impressed at how you go with it. So thanks very much for joining me here on the Learn to Paint TV for this episode. If you haven't done so already, make sure you drop by the Learn to Paint Academy and register for our free course. I'll put the web address underneath me here. And we give away a free complete painting course with 4 different painting demonstrations. So come along and register for that. Go through the free course and learn more about the Moore method of painting. As I said earlier, helped more than 30,000 people now, and lots of people are learning to paint. So come and join us if you haven't done so already. All right, thanks for joining me, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week on Learn to Paint TV. Cheers.